Though it may be known as America's pastime, baseball has spread across the world. Though the MLB is trying to come back, there is still some money to be made overseas, and Greg Peterson is going worldwide to hit a grand slam for your bankroll. From the return of baseball in the States to daily KBO picks, all the bases covered on the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson. So here is the International King of Swing.
Special hello, welcome to the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson. Got a tremendous podcast for you, so I'm going to be flying solo on this one. Want to get a little bit caught up so that way I can have date night with the girlfriend because it's been too long. We've got a little bit of that going on, but we do have a tremendous podcast. As in the first segment, you guys fired in quite a bit of KBO questions, which I love. So we're going to be going through those in the first segment. Second segment, we're going to be just taking a look back at what we saw in the KBO. Very strange to say once again, but Tuesday morning, I am still trying to get adjusted to that. I don't know if I ever will, but we're going to be taking a look at the games that were played in the last batch before the current betting batch, I guess you could say, to put it in very, very convoluted terms. And then the final segment, not so convoluted. Side and total on every game that we're going to see Wednesday morning in the KBO, and a little something I like to call touch 'em all. First things first, so always love being able to answer your Twitter questions. If there's something that you'd like answered on the podcast, just fire it into the timeline at gunit_81. Now, if you send these via DM, well, the letters DM to me does not matter, but if you send them into the timeline, more than happy to give you an answer. So let's dive into it.
So you have questions, and Greg may or may not have any insight into them, but let's dive into the Twitter mailbag.
First things first, hopefully I'm saying the same right, because we got in two questions from this gentleman. He's got a nice 49ers logo, and his Twitter handle is at MAJIT808. I'm going to give this a stab, and if I butcher it, I'm sorry. Makalei Majay. He asks, where can I find opening lines on these KBO games? I actually do not know which book they're going to consider the opening lines, because typically when you take a look at the NFL, when you take a look at college basketball, especially college basketball for myself, these opening lines are typically what is posted by Chris, which is just an offshore site. You may know it a little bit better as Bookmaker. Those are typically the lines are used as the openers. Whatever they open at, that's what you're going to list as the opening line. I have no idea what they're offering when it comes to the KBO, because it's been a little bit all over the place. When I do give you the rotation numbers, they are typically good for a lot of the Las Vegas numbers, but I do notice that offshore books, they go in the same order, but they use different numbers, which makes things very, very complicated. So in regards to the set opening line, I don't know which one you want to go with. My best recommendation, though, is here's a couple books that I know put out their lines very early. I know that when it comes to being first to market, Circa is certainly right there. They do a great job out here in Las Vegas of being able to get up these lines early. FanDuel actually does a pretty solid job as well. I do not have an account with them. I know that I've heard some House of Horror stories with them, but they do post up lines very early, so that is something that you can gauge just with regards to the market, because I know that this was the gist of your question, just being able to get a little bit more when it comes to knowing where the market opened on a game. And then also BetOnline does a solid job of being able to get these up as well, though I have noticed that BetOnline has been offering minus 115 each way in a pick'em instead of a minus 110, so they're using a little bit of a bigger straddle, so you do want to be careful there, but those are typically the first books that are posting up their lines, so you could use those as a little bit of a gauge as an opener and find out which way the steam has been moving. So hopefully that helps you out there. And then he also asked what I look for when it comes to just being able to bet on the KBO, some stats, team attributes, etc. And this is something where I take the same approach as I do in the NFL, as I do in the MLB, as I do in college basketball, all these things. You never want to just limit yourself to a couple. Some of the big things that you are going to look for is obviously bullpen. We have noticed it in the last two ESPN games that we saw, because the NC Dinos were on both of them. We saw last night / early this morning, they wind up having that comeback over the KT Wiz, who, as you guys know, if you've been listening to this podcast, they are known as the Smiling Blobs. So if you hear Smiling Blobs mentioned on this podcast, you're just like, there's no team named the Smiling Blobs. It's a KT Wiz. They call themselves a Wiz, but we all know that their mascot is a Smiling Blob. So we are not going to not call a spade in this spot, but we saw that on ESPN, I guess you could call it Tuesday morning, where the Dinos were able to make that comeback. They win in extra innings. I mean, that game was 2 outs, bottom of the ninth. Dinos were down by 2. 2 strikes in the count, and boom, 2-run home run to tie up the game. I had the stupid smiling blobs, and the smiling blobs let me down. But then a few days earlier, you saw NC Dinos versus the LG Twins. Dinos get up by a count of 6-0. Looks like they are cruising. 8th inning, the LG Twins wind up putting a touchdown on the board, and that was a big winner. And that leads me to something else that you take a look at, injuries as well, because I noticed that with the NC Dinos yesterday, Drew Rosinski, he was not looking necessarily his best when he was pitching. I found out after the game he had said some very good things about the catcher that is typically the starter for the Dinos, but wound up pulling his hamstring a couple days earlier, so he was out of the lineup. He was using a different catcher. As a result, not only was the hitting a little bit worse at the catcher spot, but there were a couple passed balls, a couple balls that were in the dirt that typically are dug up. They weren't being dug up. You could tell that the pitcher-catcher relation wasn't necessarily the best. That is always something that you want to look out for. You want to look out for an injury, not even necessarily so much with the outfielders. So I will say, injuries in the KBO can be much bigger than in the MLB, because typically in the MLB, your platoon guys, your guys that are maybe the first one in off the bench, there's not as much of a drop-off unless it's like Mike Trout to whoever the number 4 outfielder is for the LA Angels. If you've got maybe like average first baseman out of the fold and you need to bring in another first baseman for, say, the Toronto Blue Jays, you're not going to experience as much of a drop-off. But what we notice in the KBO is that a lot of these 3, 4, 5 hitters, these are guys that are good enough to be in the MLB. When you get down to like 7, 8, 9, these are guys that will probably be playing like high A baseball in the MLB. So there is a much more significant drop-off when it comes to injuries. That is something that you do want to know. Obviously, starting pitchers as well. A big reason why I wound up taking the KT Wiz yesterday when they were playing against the NC Dinos. I guess it's early this morning if you're listening at a different time, but a big reason why is because I didn't have a lot of faith in Drew Rosinski. Meanwhile, buenísima de España. Yes, I love saying that name. He was someone that looked very good in his first start. I felt like he had better stuff. He's a guy with a mid-90s fastball, good breaking ball, just something that these Korean players are not used to seeing. So obviously that's a big thing as well. And you just want to be able to note guys that do a good job of being able to get on base. There are some games in which walks are not going to be as much of an issue. You've got a very good pitcher when it comes to command, and then you got other games in which a pitcher is a little bit more loose. You want to note guys that are swinging at good pitches, laying off the bad ones. They've got a good handle of what the strike zone is. So it's just a variety of different things. Those are just a few of them that I'm looking for. Obviously, injuries. You want to be taking a look at the pitchers. And then ballpark dimensions as well. As we know, with these games being played without fans, I'm not really taking home field advantage into the fold. I don't think that the reason why the KT Wiz lost to the Dinos early Tuesday morning is because of those cardboard cutouts that were in the stands. I mean, I can think of a lot of things more menacing than a cardboard cutout. I mean, maybe Swole Daddy got into their head a little bit, but I mean, when it comes to a point in which the mascot is being taken into account, I will take it into account. Until then, we will just leave that as a bridge that has yet to be crossed. But with that said, you do want to take into account some of the ballpark dimensions as well, because I remember a few days ago, ESPN was doing a game from the Samsung Lions home field, and they were noting that the fences were in a little bit more. The air seems to be a little bit thinner in that part of the country, and thus balls flying out a little bit more. So those are things that you want to take into account as well. And then I had a couple questions as to just calculating how much you're going to be able to make on a bet, because this is a money line sport. A lot of you guys, you're used to just a minus 110, which minus 110 merely means that you have to lay $110 to win 100. Nice, easy math there. But let's say that you get minus 145, for example, and you want to figure out how much you'd win on a $5 bet. Here's what you would do for being able to do that. You first take 100 divided by 145, because the minus 145 merely means that you have to lay $145 to win 100. So the math on that, as I'm looking at my calculator right now, 0.689655517. Let's round it to 0.69 just to make things nice and clean. 5 multiplied by 0.69, that equals $3.45. So if you wind up putting down $5 on minus 145, if the bet wins, you get back your $5, plus you get an additional $3.45. Now to figure out how much you need to lay in order to win $5, here's what you do there. With it being minus 145 in the case of our example, what you do is you do 145, divide that by 100. What you get is 1.45, multiply that by 5, the equation works out to 7.25, which means that you have to lay $7.25 to win $5, and these translate to whatever. You can translate it to a $1 bet, $5 bet, $10 bet, $100 million, billion, quadrillion dollar bet. You just take those two simple equations I gave you right there. That's how much you need to lay to win a certain amount, and that's how much you stand to win if you bet a certain amount. So hopefully those help you guys out. Thank you so much for asking me those questions. Always happy to be able to give you some answers. And just a little bit of heads up on the podcast, we're going to be having some guests on the next couple days. We're actually going to be getting a gentleman that covers the KBO in South Korea, hopefully on tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. And coming up next, be on the lookout for getting a little bit of a recap as to what we all saw. I guess you could call it Tuesday morning. Still very weird to say that in the KBO. That's on the other side right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson. We are back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson. As I mentioned in the first segment, we're going to be doing a little bit of a recap here as to just what we all saw from the KBO on Tuesday morning. Try to get to know these teams a little bit better and just find out where we went right and where we went wrong. And I will tell you right now, I am not too happy with our good friends, the Smiling Blobs.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The gosh darn KT Wiz, better known as the Smiling Blobs, were on ESPN, and they choked the game away against the NC Dinos. The Dinos get this win by a count of 7-6. This game went into the 10th inning, and this was all set up by the NC Dinos being able to get a 2-run home run late in this one. Na Sung Bum, who had a grand total of 4 home runs last year, comes up with 2 strikes, 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th inning, 1 man on, and he winds up taking Lee Dae-yoon deep, and that was his 2nd home run of the campaign, and we were wondering who was going to be the front end. Oh no! Rodney of the KBO, Lee Dae-yoon. It looks like he is going to be Dae-yooning that moniker instead of Downing, Dae-yooning. I hope you guys get it, and all I can say is Dae-yoon. This was not good, as this is his 2nd blown save so far in this young season. He's got a 10.38 ERA. You are officially the Fernando Rodney of the KBO until further notice. And then from there, Ryu Hee-woon winds up giving up a home run. That was to Park Suk-min, and he wound up hitting his 2nd home run of the game in the 10th inning, and that wound up giving the Dinos the win. And I mentioned it in the first segment. The Dinos were without their regular catcher, which meant that Drew Rosinski, he just didn't look comfortable out there. He wound up giving up 2 home runs, 5 earned runs in 5 1/3 innings. And then on the other end for KT, Odisima de Espagne wound up not being able to make it out of the 5th inning. He wound up going 5 strong, gave up 3 runs, all of which were earned. So he really jacked up his pitch count. He was able to get quite a few strikeouts, but it just felt like he was going deep into accounts with a lot of guys. I will say this though, if you're looking for a promising sign for KT, it was the fact that Jong Soon-woo was able to get a home run from the bottom of the lineup. You're not able to find that very often in the KBO. And then also, Kang Baek-go was able to go yard. This was his 3rd home run of the campaign. He had just 13 last season, so looks like he's starting to get online. And with KT, this is a team that has been playing just a bevy of overs. I believe that every game except for the first one against the Lotte Giants has been a for sure over so far this year. So the KT Wiz, certainly a high scoring team. A team that has been scoring very high so far, that would be Doosan, and the Bears wind up taking down the Giants by a count of 11-6. This feels like football season all over again. As in this one, Doosan was able to get 2 home runs in this one. Kim Jae-hwan was able to go deep. He had 4 RBI in this one, and Woo Jae-won came off the bench, and he had a pinch hit home run as well. So that was big for Lotte. This is a team that has scored at least 6 runs in all but one of their games so far this year. So they certainly have been able to do a great job of being able to put runs up on the board, and their bullpen, they have been doing a very bad job of being able to keep runs off the board. As in this one, the bullpen of the Lotte Giants, they wound up giving up a grand total of 6 runs over the course of 6 innings, and Jong Won Sam, he gave up 5 runs over the course of 3 innings. This is someone that has not necessarily been a stalwart when it comes to the KBO. He has an ERA of at least a 5.6 in every one of his years ever since the beginning of the 2015 campaign, so he certainly has been giving them up. And for Doosan, Raul Alcantara, wound up not having his best start either. He wound up giving up 4 runs in this one, but bullpen from there for Doosan wasn't necessarily too bad. They gave up 2 runs over the course of 4 innings, so they were able to get the job done there. And for Lotte, what you do want to notice that Dixon Machado, just 1 for 5 in this one, but he's still been tearing up the KBO, hitting .348, 3 home runs so far this year. He spent some time in the Cubs organization last year. The Kia Tigers wound up getting a very good start out of Aaron Brooks, and they were able to get a 2-1 win over the Hanwha Eagles. For the Eagles, this is a bunch that got a very unexpectedly good start from Kim Min-soo. He wound up being able to take a no-hitter into the 7th inning, gave up 1 hit over the course of 7 innings, and then from there, the Hanwha bullpen, they wind up giving up 2 runs in 2 innings, so a little bit of brutality there, as the big decider was a home run hit by Najee Wan. He was able to get a dinger, and this is a guy that he hit 186 in the KBO last year with 6 dingers. He had 25 plus home runs in each of his previous 3 years, so clearly an all-or-nothing hitter, and he was able to get all of it in this one. And I mentioned Aaron Brooks. No, not the former quarterback. No, not the former Oregon Ducks basketball standout, but rather the guy that was pitching for the Baltimore Orioles and the Oakland A's last year. 7 strong innings, gave up 1 run. He gives up a little bit of contact, not necessarily a great swing and miss guy, but does a good job of being able to keep the game out in front of him, and what you like about him is the control. 0 walks to give it up, and the Kia Tigers, the bullpen was pretty good in this one. They wind up giving up 1 hit and no runs over the course of 2 innings. What else was pretty good? The LG Twins, they get a 9-5 win over the SK Wyverns. For the Wyverns, things have just not been going well for them. They wound up being able to make the playoffs last year in the KBO. This is a team that is now sporting a 4-game losing streak, and a big reason why they have been slumping is the fact that they have just been giving up the runs left and right. They have given up at least 8 runs in now 3 out of their last 4 games, and it did not help that one of their American-born pitchers, Nick Kingham, he just got shelled in this one. 3 2/3 innings, he gives up 10 hits, 8 runs, 5 of which were earned. The fielding certainly did him no favors. I will say this, SK actually had one of the better bullpens in the KBO last season, and they weren't too bad in this one. 4 1/3 innings, they give up just 1 run, so they were able to hold down the fort after Mr. Kingham got knighted, I guess you could say, to use a really bad chess term. But you take a look at LG, they were able to do a very good job in the bullpen a few days ago when they had their comeback against the Dinos, and in this one, once again, they were able to do a solid job. They wound up going a grand total 3 innings, they gave up 1 run, and Cha Woo Chan was able to deliver a pretty decent start in this one. 6 innings, he gives up 4 runs. This is someone that had a 4.12 ERA last year. He has been very much up and down throughout his KBO career. I think that that's putting it very politely, but when you take a look at LG, the guy that is really starting to emerge for this team, a man that spent last year in the Colorado Rockies organization, was Roberto Ramos. Why the Colorado Rockies didn't wind up promoting him to the big leagues, nobody will ever know, but he supplied the boom once again on this day. His 3rd home run of the young KBO season, so he was able to deliver with that regard. And you take a look at the LG Twins, they were able to get 2 RBI out of 3 different players, and they've got Kim Hun-soo, one of the best players in the KBO. You may remember that name because he played some time with the Baltimore Orioles and the Philadelphia Phillies a few years back. He was able to deliver 3 RBI in this one. And then the final game involved the Samsung Lions and the Kiwoom Heroes, and the Heroes, they were heroic. They wind up continuing their league best 6-1 record. They get a 3-2 win over the Samsung Lions. And for the Heroes, bullpen pitching has really been good for them. And for Kiwoom, they wound up giving up 2 runs, but both of them were actually unearned. They were hurt by a pair of fielding errors, which is a little bit unfortunate because Eric Jokic, he wound up going 6 innings in this one. He gave up 1 run, but it was an unearned run. And then you take a look at the Lions. They're just not getting a lot of offense because I think that they made a bad choice on their American-born position player. That would be Tyler Saladino. Went 1 of 3 in this one, but he's hitting a $174 for the year. I can tell you as a Milwaukee Brewers fan, he had a grand slam in back-to-back days, but those were his only 8 RBI as a Milwaukee Brewer. He had 2 lucky hits and absolutely nothing else. This is just a guy that is not consistent for you, but the Heroes, they wind up going to 5-1. They have had some very good bullpen pitching, and for the Lions, they also had some good pitching as well. Ben Lively, former MLB pitcher, he wound up being able to give the team 6 strong innings. He gave up 2 runs, and the bullpen from there gave up 1 run, but it was an unearned run as well. So that's what we all noticed from the KBO on Tuesday morning. Now let's turn the page forward to Wednesday morning. Let's give you a side and total on all the games that we are going to be seeing for the Wednesday morning slate as we touch them all next right here on the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson.
Welcome back to the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson as we're off to a quality start, and now it's time to walk it off in a grand fashion.
And we're back in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Podcast with myself, Greg Peterson. It is that time in which I give you a side and total on every game for Wednesday's KBO action as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Note that any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at @Junior_D1. Keep in mind that with KBO betting, this is unlike MLB betting. You're betting on the team. You're not going pitcher dependent unless if you're betting at Pinnacle. So you do want to take a look at sites like mykbostats.com and everything like that just to make sure that you know the starting pitcher is going to be. Make sure that there's not going to be a scratch or anything like that. And as per usual, we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. And this begins with 304-631, 304-632. The Hanwha Eagles are going to be playing host to the Kia Tigers. Tigers find themselves anywhere between a -105 and -120 favorite. You're seeing this all over the place. And the same is for the Hanwha Eagles. Anywhere between -105 and -120, though. It seems like the money seems to be coming in on the Eagles at this point as they opened up a plus money underdog. Your total on this game is 9. Over is anywhere between -110 and -120. Under is anywhere between even and -110. And for the Eagles, you are going to have Zheng Shi Hua going for them, and it's going to be Lee Min Woo towing the rubber for Kia. And Mr. Min Woo, he certainly is a little bit younger at age 27, but this is someone that has been a lifetime 5-10 pitcher in the KBO, 5.75 ERA. He was originally a reliever. He converted as a starter a little bit later in the 2019 campaign, and he just didn't necessarily have a good run of it last year. He wound up having, in his last 10 appearances, a 5.95 ERA. As a starter, his ERA actually ballooned. He did have one good start to end last season against the Lotte Giants, but against the Kiwoom Heroes, he got absolutely shelled. This is someone that does a good job of being able to keep the ball in the yard. I will give him that. 4 home runs, give it up in a little bit over 61 innings last season, but what he does a bad job of, walks. He had 26 walks in that time period as well. That's just below 4 walks per 9 innings. That is something that you do not want any part of. Meanwhile, for the Eagles, you've got Zheng Shi Hua, who wound up being a okay, I guess you could call it serviceable pitcher last year. He was with the Lotte Giants, 4.95 ERA. He did wind up going 6-13, but I will give him this. He wound up being able to give up right around 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, so nothing too bad there. He's a guy that gets right around 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, which in the KBO is actually pretty solid. So you do have to give him a little bit of credit there. We do know that with Hanwha, this is a team that has certainly been struggling to put runs up on the board, and that's putting it very, very politely. They have broken the 3-run mark just once so far this year, but I do think that this could be a good spot for them to be able to bust out. With Kia, they've been able to get some very good bullpen pitching the last couple games, but I will say this. I think that it could unravel a little bit in this one. They have been able to get some solid starts. Aaron Brooks put them in a good spot yesterday, but that means that their primary relievers were used up yesterday. I think that Min Woo, a guy that is by trade a reliever and not even a very good one, is going to get banged around a little bit. I do think that with Kia, Preston Tucker is going to be able to have some nice hitting in this one as well. This is someone that's hitting .478 for the year. He was able to do a good job in the team's comeback. 3 home runs already so far this year, so I do like what he's able to bring to the table. The middle of the lineup for Kia has been solid. Meanwhile, with Hanwha, this is a team that has been really struggling to put runs up on the board, but you can tell that their American-born player, Jared Hoying, he's starting to step up for this team. Got off to just a hellaciously cold start, but he's had back-to-back 2-hit games, which is something that you do like. And then Jung Jin Hu, who is at the top of the lineup for this team, he was just absolutely terrible last year. He hit a 208 for the team. He was banged up. He only played 66 games, but what people don't realize is that the year before, he hit a little bit over 300. This is someone that does a very good job of being able to set the table. He doesn't strike out very often. I think that we're seeing the 2018 version of him. I think that this is going to be death by a million cups. I do think that the Eagles are going to get the job done. I just don't think that the Tigers are going to get the starting pitching that they want. And I think that that bullpen is going to get worn down, and I think that it's going to be a little bit of an accumulation of things that Hanwha gets the job done. So we're taking this total over, and we are going to be taking the Hanwha Eagles. We move on to 304-635, 304-636. If you're wondering why there was a skip, it is because the Samsung Lions and Kiwoom Heroes game was supposed to be number 2 in the order, but for some reason or another, this is something that I wish I could explain to you, but I can't. it was relisted at the bottom. So just giving you a reason as to why we had a little bit of a skip there with the numbers, but it is the SK Wyverns, and they are hitting the road to face off against the LG Twins. The Twins are finding themselves as an underdog. They actually open up in a lot of spots as much as a minus 130 favorite, as we're seeing it right now. The LG Twins are anywhere between minus 110 and plus 107. That means that the Wyverns, they are anywhere between minus 110 and minus 130. Your total on this game is 9.5. The over is just anywhere between minus 105 and minus 110. Meanwhile, the under is anywhere between minus 110 and minus 115. And I'm all aboard the under. This actually opened up at 10. It is now down to 9.5. So the steam really is coming in on the under. And I do think that it is for good reason, because you've got a pretty good pitching matchup that is going to be going in this one, as Ricardo Pinto is going to be going for the Wyverns. Meanwhile, Lim Cheng-gu is going to be going for the LG Twins, and Mr. Gu has not been good. He is someone that has had a 4.46 ERA in every one of his years in the KBO. Last season, he split time as a reliever and a starter. You wound up seeing action in 30 total games, 13 starts, so you got to think that the length may not necessarily be the best. He has not went past 6 innings in any of his last 10 appearances, so that is a little bit of an issue for him. And what really does him in is the walks. 46 walks in 88 and 1/2/3 innings last season, so nearly 4.7 walks per 9 innings. In any level of baseball, that's terrible, but we've noticed in the KBO, the best teams are typically the ones in which they don't necessarily issue a lot of free passes. And with Mr. Ricardo Pinto, this is someone that looked very good in his first start in the KBO. He's a 26-year-old fireballer that spent some time at a bunch of minor league organizations, and he wound up being able to deliver a good start against Hanwha in his first appearance. 6 2/3 innings, he gave up 3 hits, 1 earned run. Walks were a little bit of an issue for him as well. He wound up issuing 3 free passes, but it felt like he was really settling down as the game went along. And with Mr. Pinto, he's never really been a tremendous length guy. The last time he really spent time getting consistent starts was in 2016 with a AA affiliate for the Philadelphia Phillies. So that is certainly something that you do want to note. But what you do also like about Mr. Pinto is the fact that in lower levels of baseball, he's been able to keep his walks down. Whenever he got up to the major league level, you could tell that he got outside of himself and he would give up a lot of walks. Sometimes gives up a little bit of hard contact, but I do think that this is going to be a very favorable matchup for him. Now with the LG Twins, you've got a very good lineup. I believe that Kim Hun-soo, who used to play for the Philadelphia Phillies, was a former teammate of Pinto, and I mentioned Roberto Ramos and what he's been able to do, but here's the big question with this LG Twins team. After that number 4 hitter, there is just a massive dip with regards to their production, because 1 through 4 for the LG Twins, they have been able to do a very good job, but aside from that comeback against the NC Dinos, the guys towards the bottom have not necessarily been able to do a good job, which means that the number 3 hitter, Chae-Un-sung, he is going to need to get the job done. This is someone that he wound up hitting 12 home runs last year before he had 25, but what he does a good job of is being able to get on base. He has hit a .315 each of the last few years, so I think that that's going to be big. But with the Wyverns, what I think is going to be interesting is that they've got one of the better bullpens out there in the KBO. It hasn't necessarily shown through this year, but last year they were very dominant out of the pen. We saw this on display yesterday as Nick Kingham was unable to get out of the 4th inning, and they wound up being able to pick up the slack. Bullpen gave up just 1 earned run from there, so they were able to do a very good job. And what I think is going to be big for the Wyverns is being able to get Jamie Romack going. This is someone that has spent the last couple years out in the KBO. He's a good power hitter. He's had at least 29 home runs in each of his 3 years in the KBO. I believe that he was either 2nd or 3rd in regards to total home runs in the KBO last year. He has yet to take one deep so far this year. He's been struggling a little bit with a .227 average. I think that he's going to be able to bust out here. I like this pitching matchup for SK. I think that they're going to be able to get right around 5 or 6 solid innings from Pinto, and then the bullpen from there gets the job done, and they hold LG to right around 3 runs. So we're going to be laying it here with the Wyverns, and we're going to be taking this total under. We move on to 304, 637, 304, 638. You've got the Lotte Giants, and they are going to be playing us to the Doosan Bears. The Bears open actually as low as minus 140, as we're seeing it right now. This is certainly getting steamed up. They are right around the minus 155 to minus 170 range, depending on where you're looking. Meanwhile, with the Lotte Giants, they're going to be as low as plus 125, but if you're able to get a good buck, you're able to get as high as lies right around a plus 140 to plus 145. And the total on this game is anywhere between 10.5 and 11. If you're seeing a 10.5, you're going to be getting the underjuice anywhere between minus 105 and even as high as plus 105. If you like that over, it's anywhere between minus 115 and minus 125. Meanwhile, with the 11, if you like the over there, you're going to get plus 105. And if you like under 11, you're going to have to pay a premium for it, minus 125. And Lotte wound up suffering their first loss of the year Tuesday morning. And this is just not necessarily the best pitching matchup for them. With Lotte, you've got Si Jun-won, who's going to be going. He's a young 19-year-old fireballer for the team. Meanwhile, for Doosan, it is Lee Young-ha that is going to be going. And Lee Young-ha, the last 2 years for Doosan, I love saying that name, by the way, 27-7 record. I will say that the ERA, not necessarily the best for him during the 2018 season. He had a 5.28 ERA, but you've got to love what he's done ever since the end of last year. Over his last 9 starts, this is someone that has an ERA below a 2.5, so he has certainly done a great job of being able to keep things out in front of him in those last 9 appearances. He's given up 3 earned runs or fewer in every one of them. The Lotte Giants, they've been able to do a great job of putting runs up on the board. At least 6 runs put up in all but one of their games so far this year, but I think that they might be cooled down a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how Dae-ho Lee is able to overcome the rigors of the season. He has been sort of in and out of the lineup so far this year. He had only 1 at-bat yesterday. There was a little bit of a tweak that happened with him. He's got 1 home run. This is someone that's 37 years old, former Mariners great, so you got to think that he might be out of the fold in this one. We are also noticing that with Lotte, they were able to get some good production toward the beginning of the year from the bottom of the lineup. Yesterday, the 8 and 9 hitters, they went a combined 0 for 9. That is something that you do want to note. Dixon Machado was cooled down in that last game as well, though I do think that he's one of the better American-born players that are in the KBO. He's hitting so far at 348. He's already went deep 3 times with 10 RBI. He was very good in the Cubs organization last year, so that is something that you want to note, but you need to get something out of Jeon Jung-woo along with Sun Hyap. These are 2 guys that have been able to do a very good job towards the top of the lineup for Lotte, but you take a look at the Doosan Bears. Unlike a lot of teams in the KBO, 1 through 9 are all fearsome. You've been hearing it on a lot of these ESPN broadcasts that typically you're able to collect some outs when you get to the bottom of the lineup with a lot of these teams. The Bears are the exact opposite. You do have Jose Miguel Fernandez, who wound up leading the KBO in hits last year, but it's not just him that's able to do it. You take a look at Kim Jae-ho and Park Se-hyuk. These guys batted 6th and 7th yesterday for Doosan. They had a combined 4 hits for the team. They do a great job of being able to get on base, something that is very big. And even someone like a Her Kyung Min, he had 288 last year, 324 the year before. He is right now hitting 8th in the lineup. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. He's got good speed. This is a Doosan team that they are going to steal some bases on you. They're going to be able to get in some RBI. I just like the overall balance. Doosan has been letting you down with the bullpen a little bit, but they were able to get 5 good innings out of Raul Alcantara yesterday. I do think that they are going to be able to get a quality start in this one. I think that Lotte is going to be cooled down, and I think that Doosan gets the job done. I wound up taking the under 10.5 at plus 105. I advise a play either way, under 10.5, under 11. Though I will say, if you're going under 11, try probably laying a little bit less than minus 125 if it does get steamed up. But with that said, on the under, and we are going to be taking the Bears. We are going to be moving on to 304, 639, 304, 640. It is the NC Dinos, and they are going to be playing host to the KT Wiz, aka the KT Smiling Blobs. And if you like the Smiling Blobs, you're going to be getting a plus price here. Anywhere between plus 140 and plus 160. This one is all over the map. Meanwhile, with the NC Dinos, you're going to lay as low as minus 165. It can get to as high as minus $2 if you have a book with really bad juice. The over is pretty consistent on this one. Over-under is 9.5. The over has juice anywhere between even a minus 105. Under is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 120. And this is a spot where I'm going to be taking a look at the over. I believe that KT has played all but one of their games of the over so far this year. They're going to be sending out former Boston Red Sox, not so great, William Cuevas. Meanwhile, if you're taking a look at what NC is going to be trotting out there, Mike Wright. And Mr. Wright has not been right throughout his entire career. He spent most of it with the Baltimore Orioles. He did wind up having a quality start in his first outing in the KBO. This is his first year in the league. He wound up being able to deliver 5 innings and 2 runs against Samsung. But I will say this, both of those runs, they were via the home run. And what KT does is they've actually got some very good power hitting. What I like is that Mel Rojas wound up being able to give the team 20-plus home runs last year, 40-plus home runs before the ball was G-Juice the year before. This is someone that is really able to get into one. And with KT, unlike a lot of these teams out there in the KBO. 1 through 9 seems to be a very good threat. Well, maybe the number 9 hitter in Beijing Day. He's not necessarily very good. He's hit 205 or worse each of the last 2 years, but really past the 9 hitter, they're pretty good. And what I think is going to be big is just being able to get some speed out there, because we saw it on the broadcast yesterday. These guys at the top for KT, Sim Woo Jung along with Kim Min Hyuk, these two guys do a very good job of being able to get on base because they've got some of the best wheels that you're going to find out there in the KBO. And with the NC Dinos, Aaron Altair continues to be Aaron Alterable. He's hitting 235. He wound up missing a couple of games earlier in the season due to injury. He's just someone that I can't get behind. I remember he had a $123 last year in the MLB. I mean, there's a reason why we call him Aaron Alterable in this podcast. But with that said, the NC Dinos, they certainly have been able to put up runs. I mentioned how good KT has been to the over so far this year. You take a look at the Dinos. They have scored at least 4 runs in every one of their games so far this year. And in their past 4 games, they have scored at least 5 in every one of them. This KT team, their bullpen is a gas can. The NC Dinos, they have not necessarily been great with the bullpen. They did a good job yesterday. I will give them credit. Actually, it was this morning, depending on when you listen. Tuesday morning, we'll just go with that. But with that said, you take a look at NC Dinos, they wound up going 4 2/3 innings. They gave up 1 run out of the bullpen, but we remember the game before against the LG Twins a couple days earlier. They wind up just completely lighting that game on fire, and I feel like this could happen once again on Wednesday morning just because they did wind up having to use up a lot of their trustworthy bullpen arms. I do think that this is a good spot for KT. I think that the speed is going to allow them to get on base. I think it's going to allow them to be able to get to Michael Wright, someone that is not going to give this team, in my opinion, much more than 6 innings. And when they get into the bullpen, that will be KT's time to strike. So for that reason, we are going to be taking the total over, and we are going to be taking the Smiling Blobs. And we wrap things up by going with our heroes. This is game number 304-665, 304-666. The Kiwoom Heroes are going to be playing those to the Samsung Lions. The Leons are finding themselves anywhere between a plus 150 and a plus 170 underdog. This is one that is certainly ranging, as is the price with the Kiwoom Heroes. You're able to find them as low as minus 175. I'm seeing them as high as minus 215 in some books. So you certainly do want to shop around, and this is a big reason why I'm not going to be taking the money line in the spot, but I'm going to rather take the run line. And this is another one that's ranging. At BetOnline earlier today, I saw the Heroes laying a run and a half at minus 115. I saw at FanDuel that same minus 1.5 on the Heroes at plus 120. So you are finding a whole bunch of range in this one. I wound up taking the Heroes run line at a plus price. I advise it here. And the big reason why I advise the Heroes at a plus price on the run line is you just take a look at this pitching matchup, and it should be completely dominant, as you've got an American-born pitcher in David Buchanan going for the Samsung Lions. Meanwhile, for Kiwoom, Chai Won-tae is going to be going, and Mr. Won-tae has been very good the last 2 years in the KBO. He has a combined 24-12 record for the team. He has had an ERA right around a 3.5 in that time period as well. And you just take a look at the last 10 appearances that he's made for the Heroes. 2.17 ERA. If you go a little bit more specific, in the last 8, ERA south of 2, and he has went at least 5 innings in each out of his last 10 starts. He has went at least 6 innings in 8 of them, which means that you avoid the bullpen, which is very good. And for Kiwoom, they actually do have a solid bullpen. They didn't have to go into it too much yesterday. And with the Samsung Lions, their bullpen at times is very good. Their bullpens at times is absolutely terrible. We saw a couple days ago against the Kia Tigers, they wind up laying the game on fire. The first couple games of that series, though, they were absolutely terrific. But you take a look at David Buchanan. He got lit up in his first start in the KBO. He wound up going up against the NC Dinos, went 6 innings. He gave up 5 runs, all of which were earned, including a home run. He has spent the last couple years in Japan and other places, and he's had an ERA hovering right around a 5 in the Japanese leagues. He's given up a lot of home runs in those leagues, and in Japan, you're not going to find a whole lot of home runs. This is a game in which you really promote small ball, and yet he's giving up home runs. That's just something that I want absolutely no part of. And then when you take a look at the Kiwoom Heroes, this is a team that has been doing just an absolutely tremendous job of being able to hold teams down. They have given up more than 3 earned runs just once so far this year, which I do find to be a little bit amazing. But what you do have to like about the Heroes as well is the fact that they have scored at least 5 runs in 4 of their last 5 games as well. So they balance it out. Very good offense to go along with very good defense. And with the Heroes, they probably do have the worst American-born player that you're going to find in this entire league. Taylor Motter. I remember this guy with the Seattle Mariners. He's got a good glove. I will give him that. When it comes to fielding, Taylor Motter, he is a guy that you can rely upon. With his bat, you might as well just give him like the plastic sword that you remember from the bench warmers, how Howie was like crouching down. That's what Taylor Motter looks like. He's batting a $125 so far this year, and he's actually got good wheels. So, I mean, you've got that going on, but you take a look more at the top of the lineup, guys like Kim Ah-seong are guys that I can really get behind. He's hitting just a $185 so far this year, but has hit at least a 281 in every year since 2015, and you gotta think that the power numbers are going to be there as well. At least 19 home runs in each of the last 5 years for the team. I think that Park Byung-ho is also going to get going, if you recognize that name. He is someone that spent some time in the States as well with the Minnesota Twins. He has hit at least a 280 in every one of his years in the KBO since 2012. Led the league in home runs last year with 33. In each of his full seasons ever since 2011 in the KBO, he's hit at least 30 home runs. This guy is just absolutely terroristic. He's got 2 so far this year, but he's been struggling to get on base, 222 batting average. I think that he busts out here, and Mr. Buchanan, I just think is going to be the cannon in which ignites the Kiwoom Heroes. I think that they get their offense going. I think that they have a chance to be able to get to 9 all by themselves. So for that reason, we are going to be taking this total over, and we are also going to be taking a look at the run line with the Heroes. And I forgot to mention the total on this game as well. Shame on me. Total on this game that I'm seeing is 9. The over is anywhere between -105 and -110. Under is anywhere between -110 and -115. So that ties up that knot, and that ties up everything for the Tuesday afternoon / Wednesday morning edition of the Baseball Betting Podcast with Greg Peterson. If you like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. And if you ever have a question for the podcast, write into my timeline at @Junior_81. Hopefully you're all safe, healthy, and doing well. I'll talk to you guys once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.